for me, it was a great way to end our Haitian coverage because it's real easy to get bogged down in all the things that are going wrong in Haiti or that have gone wrong in Haiti. And what I loved was that this documentary showed so much about the power of the Haitian people to enact change, but how flippin' hard it is for that change to stay or to stabilize. Hey everybody, we're the good doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I'm Dr. Kristen.
And you are so very welcome to our tiny little corner of the internet where we are up to our last video in our month-long conversation about Haiti for our series Colonizer's World Tour. We talked about Haiti last year when we covered French colonies. And we learned so much and learned we needed to learn so much more that we decided to do one of our month-long studies. So this week we've been talking about Haiti and the economy. We are not talking about a film called The Economist today. We are talking about the 2003 film called The Agronomist, which is available on Plex for free, but we suggest renting it on Amazon Prime because then you get subtitles. But it's like $2.99, and I think well worth the watch. It is a documentary detailing the life of Jean Dominique, who was the aforementioned eponymous agronomist, as well as a Haitian radio journalist and human rights activist. So it is, a very early 2000s documentary. Bless. But it is, it jumps around a lot, which was confusing for me at parts. And I know you have some critique about how the film was made per se. But it really is just the story of Jean Dominique and how he came to be really a populist figure in contemporary Haiti, especially by the 80s, as he was exiled for 6 years the first time, during the reign of Baby Doc Duvalier, the son of Papa Doc Duvalier. It's a fascinating insight in this documentary to his relationship with the Duvaliers and with the regime, and kind of what it was like to start Haiti's first independent radio station in the midst of Papa Doc Duvalier's reign of terror, which I thought was a pretty ballsy thing to do. And then, details the reason for him and his wife Michelle's second exile in the 90s because of the coup that overthrew Jean-Baptiste Aristide. So lots of exiles, lots of coups, lots of shootings at a radio station in Port-au-Prince, but a fantastic story about a human being and the what you can do when you care about people. He cared about the Haitian people, and for me, it was a great way to end our Haitian coverage because it's real easy to get bogged down in all the things that are going wrong in Haiti or that have gone wrong in Haiti. And what I loved was that this documentary showed so much about the power of the Haitian people to enact change, but how flippin' hard it is for that change to stay or to stabilize because of all the other factors that we've talked about for the last 4 weeks. It was the Haitian people that helped put so much pressure on Baby Doc that he eventually fled. And it was the Haitian people that put so much pressure on the military regime that took over for Baby Doc that led to democratic elections, that led to the election of Aristide. And I was just like, look, the Haitian people just want to have a life and like elect their own leaders and listen to the radio in Creole. Like, come on now. But yeah, I thought even though it's ultimately a sad story at the end, I was uplifted by it. What were your thoughts and feelings about this film, my dear?
Ooh, I got distracted by a lot of the structural problems that I had. I was really surprised that that this was how Demi chose to make this film. So as I mentioned yesterday, the director of this is Academy Award-winning director Jonathan Demme, who is most famous for his work on Silence of the Lambs in Philadelphia. And the only way that you'd really know this was his work is because it's full of close-ups, and that was one of his main cinematographic things. Like, he constantly does close-ups. And this film, I was like, when I saw it with Jonathan Demme, I was like, oh, it's going to be really well structured. It's going to have some tension. He's going to know what to do. And I don't find that he did any of those things. And so it was frustrating for me as a film. Story was great. I thought he spent too much time on some things and not enough time on others. I would have really loved to talk to some other Haitians about Jean Dominique's impact. I would have liked to have a little bit less of Jean Dominique telling us how impactful he was, and a little bit more showing that. I'd also would have loved to know, besides against the regime, like, what was Jean Dominique's dream for Haiti? Like, what was he standing for? Like, what was he trying to usher in besides just power to the people, which he was clear about? But, like, this guy was such a dreamer and a quirky creative. Like, I would have loved to know what he thought Haiti could really do and what Haiti could have looked like. And it's possible that Demi asked that question. It was on the cutting room floor. But I would have liked a little bit more investigation in that. And then there was, like I told you offline, his funeral scene was interestingly shot and constructed once he was assassinated, especially the scene where he was, his ashes were spread in the water. It was a lot of, like, let's watch 3 minutes of the actual ashes going into the water. And I was like, we're spending a lot of time on this right now. It's gotten, it's interesting because it's gotten a lot of really good contemporary reviews, and it has not held up since. A lot of the very negative reviews are much more recent. And I think not only about, the camera quality is 2000, and he shot a lot of the interviews in the 90s. So the camera quality is not my issue here.
Yeah.
It's the construction of how he chose to tell the story, which I found at times alienating from Jean Dominique himself at times. But I will also say, because we didn't already say it, I found out that all of the archives of Radio Haiti are being held at Duke University, and they're being analyzed and collated, and they're now fully archived. So all of that is being kept in perpetuity, regardless of political instability in Haiti, which I was very grateful for, because
That's awesome.
These kind of conversations we got to keep them.
Mm-hmm.
I also would have loved to know why within the film itself there was no choice to subtitle the French or the Creole, which was a choice, I thought. And then my only other thing I would love to say about Jean Dominique in particular is that he's also a great example of how to use your privilege and leverage it for the power of others. Mm-hmm. He's an incredibly privileged person, as is his wife. They are highly educated. They are light-skinned in Haiti. Yeah. They are very well connected. Jean Dominique is the direct descendant of one of the revolutionaries. Mm-hmm. And they used that to then really, spend as much social capital as they could.
Yeah.
To improve the lives of the Haitian people. And I loved that reminder that all of the names, like you already said this, but I'll say it again, all the names that we get coming out of Haiti are terrible. Mm-hmm. They're the dictators. They're, all this. We all should, anyone who's interested in Haiti should know Jean Dominique's name.
Yeah. And I think it was such a great story to see, because he clearly, understood the importance of creating a platform that was accessible for people. And, he realized the power of stories, which is why, like, we have a YouTube channel. And he knew that he could try and enact change in Haiti with the power of storytelling. And so, Radio Haiti was the first independent radio station in Haiti, but it was also the first one to produce programming in Creole, which was like the language that the people spoke. And prior to that, all the broadcasts were in French. And so there was a great section of him explaining that and talking about a voodoo ceremony that he did documentary film of, and like played the audio on the radio station in a way that like was so representational for people to be able to hear themselves. And they didn't go into as much detail as I would have liked, especially they did towards the end his work with peasant groups and associations. And that was one of his like real passions, was helping subsistence farmers in Haiti to have a voice in the government. And like they interviewed one farmer from the Atibonite Valley who talked about just the impact of hearing Jean Dominique on the radio and hearing Creole on the radio, and how much he wanted to meet him. And he ended up being one of the people that spread his ashes at the end. So that was really powerful. But like just the idea that he broadcast things in Creole. And then the other part that I thought was really fascinating was how he kind of saw reporting on international news as a way to get people to like broaden their understanding of the world, but also to be able to reflect that understanding back to what was happening to them. So he talked about, some of the other dictatorial regimes that happened during the Duvalier 40 years, and how covering Nicaragua helped people understand.
Yeah, I loved that.
And he was like, they were hearing these stories about what was going on in Nicaragua and what was going on in other places. And they were like, wait a second, that sounds familiar. I know that. And when you're dealing with, the level of illiteracy that existed in Haiti at the time, the inaccessibility of outside information, especially because of the control of the Duvalier regimes, back-to-back Duvaliers. I think, the power of radio really was a huge part of this story. I agree with all of your critiques of the film itself. It was really messy. The way they told the story was really messy. Structurally, not like the video I can handle because it was like the 90s and then the early 2000s, the video quality. But yeah, structurally, it was messy. I would have liked to have... Yeah, I mean, I just kind of would have liked maybe 2 documentaries. I would have liked a documentary about Jean Dominique, and I would have liked a documentary about Radio Haiti.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
like,
and I think maybe that would have solved some of my frustration. Yeah.
I would have, and you can't tell one without the other, obviously, so there would have been a lot of overlap. But like Jean Dominique is a fascinating person. I think what I got to while you were talking in my head was like he was trying to tell too many stories. Because he wanted to tell the story of Jean Dominique, and he wanted to tell the story of Radio Haiti, and he did, but like both were missing chunks. Because he had to, keep it to an hour and a half. I would have loved more about the other people who worked in Radio Haiti, his wife Michelle and his daughter JJ, and then some of the other radio personalities, and what it was like to try and just, we got glimpses of that, especially because the radio station kept getting attacked. And after their second exile, they came back, and he said it took them 7 months to raise enough money to fix the FM tower at Radio Haiti so that they could go back on the air and broadcast again. But like I those were the parts that drew me back in, and I was like fascinated by like, how do you build a radio station with no money and no sponsors in the poorest country in the United States? So I think that would have solved some of the problems. But yeah, we got a lot of context, I thought, too, for U.S. relations what was happening with the dictators and with the United States government. But I thought, a lot of that context was helpful, as we're both like visual learners. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, so like I would recommend this documentary, or at least learning more about Jean Dominique.
I would recommend the Wikipedia article about this movie to learn more about Jean Dominique.
And do some more research into Radio Haiti, and yeah, because there was a movie, I'm not going to remember the name of it, Pirate Radio.
Oh yeah, the one about the offshore radio during the 60s.
Yeah. So more a movie like that, or a straight biography of Jean Dominique, but it was like trying to be both.
Yeah. Oh, that movie's also called The Boat That Rocked. It has two titles.
It has two titles. Yeah. I know, it's so weird because every time I think about it.
It's like one of Richard Curtis's later films.
Yeah. But I saw it when it was called Pirate Radio, and then now it is called The Boat That Rocked. And I was like, whatever.
Sure.
But yes.
Well, pals, that's Haiti for now. We are going to move on next week and spend the month of October talking about various indigenous groups around the world. Not only, we talk a lot about indigenous folks from lands that the United States now occupies, but we don't actually talk about all of them because we've missed speaking about indigenous Alaskans. We have missed speaking about indigenous Hawaiians. And we're going to fix that and a couple other glaring errors next month. And we hope you join us for our week-by-week Colonizers World Tour through indigeneity. And then we'll be on a break, and we'll see you guys again next year for 6 more months of the Colonizers World Tour. But I'm sure you have enough now, 2 years of back catalog to enjoy, hopefully, while we take some time off to research, because we try to take as much time as possible. We try to dig in as much as possible. And we do really enjoy doing this work, but we try to be realistic. Mm-hmm. So I think my concluding thoughts on Haiti are people need to get out of the Haitian people's way.
Yeah.
They seem to be, industrious and kind and all of the other things that people are everywhere. If folks could just stop using and abusing them.
Amen. Yeah. I have a deep and abiding love for Haiti now with this. And I'm so grateful for all that we've learned. Yep. And I'm so saddened by all that we've learned. And, we'll be talking about Haiti, I know, for the rest of our lives because Absolutely. Of the impact that it's had on us. So if we have had an impact on you, please do all the YouTube-y things, like and subscribe, click the bell so that you don't miss our continuing coverage of Colonizers World Tour. We're, in the middle of starting our Handmaid's Tale Season 5 coverage as well. You'll find lots of interesting things happening on our YouTube channel that you don't want to miss out on. If you would like to join us in conversations off of the YouTube, in the show notes below, you'll find a link to our weekly newsletter where we talk about empathy all the time. All things empathy. That's our jam as empathy educators. So we would love for you to join us there as well. And we will see you when we see you next on the playlist or the next video or whatever.
Be well, everybody.
Bye.